So we'll start the meeting then. First of all, I'm very grateful for your presence here. I specifically has not promoted this meeting a lot because I still think I should practice a little bit my English and leading meetings in English. So actually the fact that there is less people is helpful for me. So I can feel like I can practice a little bit in a very nice company with friends who will be not very judgmental if something. And I will have like some starting content for YouTube, so then people can check out, like, you see, this is how it is, and maybe you want to come for the next meeting. So that's why it's very helpful for me. And also I know that I have like a Polish accent and I want to work on that, so my English is more English in a way. And because I want to practice that, then I have to put more focus on that. So the talk might be a little bit lower quality than in Polish, but I hope with time I will get there to make the same quality in English like in Polish. But this is like a very introductory thing. First of all, hello everyone. Is there anyone who is not from Poland? Apfel? I have not seen Apfel before. Anyway, if someone is not from Poland, then hello, you can introduce yourself later. And my plan for today's meeting is such. First, I will give a short talk on meditation. Then we'll do a meditation, guided meditation. Then there will be a break. And after break, we will have a regular talk, like lecture. And after break, we will have Q&A at the end. And it will be lasting around 7 p.m. with 2 or 3 breaks in between. But let's start. So I want to start with introductory lecture about meditation. It won't be as long as a normal lecture. It will take me probably around 15 minutes to half hour. We'll see about this, but it's like an introductory meeting. So I want to express what is my approach to meditation. And should I call it Buddhist meditation or just meditation? So first of all, I base my approach mostly on Buddhism, especially early Buddhism, like we find in Pali Canon. But we have to distinguish like modern classical Theravada interpretations from early Buddhist texts. It will be something that will be very relevant in our main lecture, because I will want to actually express how what is like my spin on spirituality in general. So I have to refer to it at least a little bit right now. And because my approach is such, I try to study early Buddhist texts, which is Pali Canon Suttas, try to have this like phenomenological epoche, to try to not see through lens of later interpretations, but to take texts as they are. And I think this is important because from my studies and my perspective, I find that a lot of modern interpretations are just based on classical interpretations. So we are first acquainted as ourselves with modern classical interpretations. What I mean by modern classical is that they are classical but modernized, but they don't really go back to the roots, but to these classical interpretations from Visuddhimagga, Abhidhamma, Goenka courses and stuff like that. But let's go back to the source, to the suttas itself. And what I found is that Buddhist meditation in the suttas is much more open-minded and very loosely presented. So in general, like in the sutta, like Majjhima Nikaya 27, for example, Buddha says that meditation is pretty much about sitting down and removing 5 hindrances from the mind. So 5 hindrances are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, and doubt. So the pretty much definition of meditation is to remove these 5 hindrances, and of course it means also cultivating wholesome mental states. And this is like a general definition of meditation. And all the techniques are pretty much secondary to that. So whatever technique works for you, you can use it. If it removes 5 hindrances and cultivates wholesome mental states, then this is a good technique in my opinion. And of course, because nowadays we learn mostly, first we learn like this is the technique. You do the technique and this technique takes you to enlightenment. But actually, yeah, maybe it can do that, but at the same time, maybe not. So I just want to I prefer like more open-minded approach where you simply do whatever practice works for you. And so this comes back to a very fundamental thing that I will be speaking a lot about today, which is just observe your mind. And by that, I mean, for example, that which Buddha says, speaks about it in Kesamutti Sutta, also called Kalama Sutta, where he speaks that all these spiritual matters are doubtful matters, and we have to just really observe our hearts, our minds, and continuously, very sincerely, and to make conclusions that are actually in line with reality as we observe that. And we can apply it to meditation in general. And so I think we should try different things to explore how various mental processes, various perceptions and stuff like that influence our mind, and then we learn. And what I find is that it's a gradual process, and you simply learn new things on the way, and it takes years and years and years, and you discover things that you would never imagine you would discover them before. So I think it's more like just exploratory process, and slowly you find your way into that. So I find it very natural, and I find techniques can be helpful to just get you started, but then I think it's much more skillful to just be more natural in meditation and exploratory. And slowly you start to get a hang of it, like what do I do with my mind that it actually gets calmer, gets brighter, more lucid, more wholesome. And so we can distinguish like two very huge schools of spirituality. And one school is like, I call it like a school of discipline or school of obedience, I would call it. School of obedience, where you obey what your teacher tells you and you do step by step exactly what you're told and you do not question. Because in this huge school, it is in generally said that if you question your teacher, then you just stray from the path and you indulge in your defilements, you indulge in your like natural mind states, which should be like taken by the reins, and you have to do what is told, and this is the way. And the second big school is the school of intuition, of naturality, of just following natural course of the path. And in the second school, I think a good example of it is Bhante Sunyo from Bodhinyana Monastery, because he gave this Dhamma talk that is very dear to my heart. It's called Just Trust the Dhamma, Trust Your Mind. And in this talk, he also guides meditation, in which, in the talk, he speaks about that it really depends on the day what kind of meditation you do. So, for example, he was giving two examples, meditation on emptiness and meditation on loving kindness. And he just says that on some days, meditation on loving kindness would not work for him, but the meditation on emptiness would be great in that moment. And on the other day, meditation on emptiness would not work, but the meditation on loving kindness would work. So he clearly observes his mind and decides, okay, now is the time for loving kindness meditation. Now is the time for emptiness meditation. So he clearly follows that which is present in his heart. And that's what I see as this naturality. While if he was in this school of obedience, he would say, no matter what I feel, from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., I have to do loving kindness meditation. From 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., I have to do emptiness meditation. So there it would be like in this obedience without taking into consideration what is your actual mind state. So you can see there are these two different schools. So I just want to say straight up that what I try to support, to explain is this second school of naturality. So we clearly want to look what is in our minds and to act accordingly. So it's more dynamic process that depends on what is going on in the present moment. So that's the first thing, this naturality and responsiveness to what is actually present. Second thing is that I really believe that meditation is deeply connected with the whole life or the practice in whole life. And I also write about it in my PhD. I give this basic distinction between formal practice and practice of Dhamma in your whole life. And actually in the essence, they are the same. Because both are just about removing negative mental states and cultivating positive mental states or wholesome mental states, which we can, in the Buddhist terms, call it right effort. So it applies both to formal meditation and practice of Dhamma in the whole life. But the difference is that when you practice formal meditation, you are much more dedicated to this process and you probably use some like technique or like a general process approach you have to cultivate your mind in a more dedicated way. And also usually in a quiet space, in sitting posture, which is not necessary, but it's usually done like that. So formal practice is just more dedicated, and practice in life is more like you apply Eightfold Path, Noble Eightfold Path, to your whole life. But what I find is very important to realize the connection between these two. So I would say that meditation is mostly developing understanding and right effort and just cultivate your heart. And the more you just deepen your understanding, the more you are wise and compassionate and kind in life, then simply when you sit down to meditation, your mind is different because it's changed by the way you live. So then when you sit, your mind automatically has different relation to the present moment. And I think this is the most important thing. So this is general cultivation. So it's not like you sit down to meditate and you really struggle to get into some specific mental state. It's more like you just continue the process of general cultivation that is a little bit related to the rest of your life, because it just cannot be done otherwise, because you can see it when you sit down to meditate. There are always some processes that are like leftovers from your life. So for example, you had some situation during the day and you then sit down in the evening to meditation, then of course certain thoughts, images, emotions related to that situation will be present in your meditation, because these things are connected. And the more skillful you dealt with the situation, the less negative impact it will have on your meditation. Or even if you acted skillfully in the world, then it will be like this positive fire that will actually deepen your meditation or uplift your mind during the meditation, because you will remember what you've done well. So this is really connected. And I also think that On the one hand, in the meditation, we should try to calm down our minds and to disengage in a way from our experience. So we get more in touch with what I call inner silence. But on the way to that, it's unavoidable that certain thoughts will be drifting in your mind. But what is the goal actually is that during the process of meditating, you will find that your mind becomes quieter and calmer. And at the end of the meditation, when your mind is very calm, hopefully, when you emerge from it, certain thoughts will flood your mind and it will be the most wholesome and accurate and wise thoughts. And in this way, you usually, at the end of the meditation, you find solutions to what you should do next in your life. And then you can see this connection. The more skillful and wholesome you are in your life, the better gets your meditation. It's more quiet and more lovely by nature. And if you go deeper into quietness and loving kindness in your meditation, the better and wiser thoughts you get at the end of the meditation, which then guides your direction in your life, and you get better choices in your life, which then influences that your meditation is getting calmer and more lovely, and then you get better thoughts which guides your life even better. So this is like an organic process that supports each other, and I really believe this is a good approach, and this is approach I take. So I might be wrong. In general, my approach is that I assume I could be wrong about everything. Like, I'm not saying I am an alpha and omega, that I know everything, that I've got everything right. But just based on my experience and my observations, I choose certain way of practice because I find it simply at this point the best in my conditions. So that's why I share it. Like, that's why I said, even in this introductory video, that it's up to you to choose if what you think what I say is useful to you. I don't say it is the best thing in the world or whatever. Well, it is for me, because otherwise I wouldn't be saying that, because my intention is to share what is best, but it's up to you to check and to decide if that works for you. So that's my general approach. And I also might say a little bit that I do it in this way because on my own experience, I found that when I was following these very obedient types of meditation and very hardcore meditation retreats or practices, actually, I would say they made more harm than good in my life. Because this is like forcing your mind into, I would call it a little bit neurosis. It makes you neurotic in a way. You start to obsess with certain way of experiencing that is not very natural. And Bhante Sujato gave a very nice simile for that. Imagine two people going to a beach by the sea, and there are just waves, and there is nice experience of, evening at the beach. And there is a meditator and a normal person. And a normal person just sits there and listens to the waves and looks at the sunset and just listens to the atmosphere and sees the beautiful colors and just relaxes naturally. But the hardcore disobedient meditator says, no, I observe the breath. I count the breath. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. No. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. I scan my body, every cell of the body. With oh, I forgot the finger. No, I must go back, And this creates this neurotic pattern of experiencing. You cannot just relax by the sea. You have to do the technique. And I just found it personally. For me, that it did more harm than good. And so now I'm trying to undo this process, and I just try to go back more to normal in a way. And I just try to find a way of meditation that is more natural. And since I do that, I get much better results. So I know we have different personality types. We are different people. I don't say this technique, obedient, oriented paths are completely wrong. Maybe for some people, they are the best things in the world. But for me, it wasn't the case, so I tried to explain what I find works for me. So this is the second part of my this introductory lecture on meditation, and the third part is just a little bit about my technique, and we could call it method or approach, and it's related to also like this word that is actually the name of everything I do, empty fullness, in Polish Pustkopełnia, because it's of course related to the Buddhist emptiness, because in Buddhism in general we can say that the more things cease, the more parts of reality cease, the more peaceful and blissful it becomes. But normal people, when they hear the word emptiness, they have very negative associations with that. They feel that emptiness is depressing, it's full of despair, of sorrow, lamentation, of loneliness, and all these negative states. But actually, in Buddhism, emptiness is the highest form of bliss. That's why it's more, in a way, connected to what people call fullness. But fullness also people usually associate with things like abundance, with richness of life. So empty fullness connects these two things. It's fullness because you are full of bliss, of peace, of loving kindness, of happiness, of calmness, of tranquility. But at the same time, you are empty. It's not abundance. It's not like you have a lot of things, that you have a lot of plans, that you have a lot of excitement or anything. It's empty. There's pretty much not much going on, but at the same time, you feel full and complete. That's why it's empty fullness. And I think this empty fullness is pretty much what we develop in meditation. There are many kinds of meditation, and we could, it's not like some super ultimate distinction, but let's distinct three types, which is samatha, which is just calming the mind, Brahma Viharas, which is just developing these wholesome, loving mental states like loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy. And there are contemplations, various contemplations, which we can subdivert into two, positive contemplations and negative contemplations in a way. So positive contemplations would be like recollection of the Dhamma, recollection of generosity, where you recollect certain things so you get more uplifted. And negative contemplations are like death contemplation, contemplation of impermanence, of suffering, where their goal is to develop certain detachment and disillusionment. So I think, of course, all these kinds are very useful. It depends what your goal is, but my main approach in the meetings I do is usually to focus on this basic stuff. Because I'm not very advanced practitioner or whatever, so I prefer to focus on the basics, and I believe the basics are tranquility, this Brahma Viharas, loving kindness and compassion, and these positive contemplations, because they are the most safe, right? People won't commit suicide because they practice loving kindness or tranquility, right? So at least I feel safe that I'm not harming anyone with teaching this stuff, or propagating, maybe teaching is too big of a word. Anyway, so the way I usually guide meditation is focused on, first of all, developing tranquility, because I believe this is absolute basic of everything. The meditation should start with tranquility. You should get peaceful a little bit. So I have this approach that is, in general, I would say, when it comes to tranquility, in a way, I am inspired by Ajahn Brahm, because he gives this simile of the cup. When you have water in the cup, no matter if you hold it, then it always is shaking a little bit, but when you put it down, then the water becomes still. This is his simile, and I like a little bit more to perceive my mind as a process, as a flow, like a river, like water similes. And so I change it a little bit. I say that my favorite simile is the simile where you put your feet in the ocean. Like when you're on the beach and there is this shore where the waves just touch your feet. So this is like a simile. You stand with the feet in the ocean. You cannot control the ocean because it's not your decision when there is this inflow, outflow of the waves. You only can experience as they touch your feet. And this is very pleasant experience. And in this way, you can experience your meditation. My approach is also such, I don't force anyone to follow any specific meditation object, so to say, because of course there are many, like physical breath, like kasinas, like there are some breath meditations concerned with this energy flowing in the body, sometimes called prana. So there are many approaches, so I don't force anyone to follow any specific quote meditation object. But I try to suggest that if you follow any object, then treat it like this wave on the ocean. You do not control the waves, you just experience them. So let's say my personal favorite is this quote energy that flows in the consciousness. But it can be whatever else you prefer. It can be breath or whatever, physical breath or some other mental object or physical object. But you just let it be as it is. So whatever you observe, you let it be and you try to experience this like these waves by the shore. So you just experience it trying to get it in a more positive way. Like when you are standing in the shore, you try to delight in a way in this wave. So you try to be like more positive, more open-hearted, a little bit delight in the meditation object, because it's based on this simile of a finer peg. You have to use a finer peg to remove the coarser peg. So of course, the ultimate goal of Dhamma is to not delight in anything, but let's be honest. To get there, you first have to learn to delight in more subtle things, so you can learn to let go of the more coarse things. So learning to delight in the subtleness of the meditation object is very skillful at this stage. So we just delight in these waves by the ocean, whatever meditation object it is, and we experience it as it is. So how it relates to this Ajahn Brahm simile of the cup? Well, simply because just like you let go of the cup to make it still, you let go of the control of the meditation object. So Ajahn Brahm calls it the doer and the knower. We let go of the doer because the ocean is the doer. The object happens by itself. And we just stay with the knower. We just experience the object. The only thing we do is a very subtle doing, which is doing with perception, because we try to perceive the object in a more positive way as a, let's say, delightful object, which is also a healing object. And this is the second very important thing that I try to suggest in meditation, is to treat meditation as a whole as a very regenerative, healing, and just very wholesome and process that is good for you. So you treat it in a way like a healing process, that the very fact you're meditating is healing itself. It regenerates your mind, it regenerates your body. In a way, it regenerates your spirit, whatever spirit is. So it's a regenerative process that like builds you in the good things. And the very thing you perceive it that way actually creates it like this a little bit, which is a little bit related to first verses of Dhammapada, that mind is the forerunner of all things. Perception really creates a reality to a certain degree. So if we just treat these waves of meditation object as something that heals us, is good for us, is delightful, it actually becomes like that in a way. So this is this is like the basic thing. And slowly, the another part that is important to me is something I call inner silence. So inner silence is just the silence that is beneath our thoughts. So whatever the thoughts are saying, these verbalizations in the mind, whatever is going on in the mind, there's always this background. And we can listen into this background that is beneath the thoughts. So this is, I call it listening to inner silence. And actually this inner silence, let's say, have two aspects. It's getting a little bit advanced right now, but let's go with it. So the one, like the layer of inner silence, is something called nada, which is actually, there is a branch of yoga called nada yoga, which is about listening to this inner sound of this, like this high-pitched vibratory noise in the mind. In Buddhist circles, Ajahn Sumedho and Ajahn Amaro a little bit thought about this as a meditation object. It's very unpopular, but not like it's wrong, but it's just not mainstream. But in yoga, it's much more popular. But let's not, get into what is good, what is wrong. Just let's say in our experience we can find this sound, and I call it nada. And the second layer is, I call it absolute silence. Is you can actually direct your mind into absolute nothingness of sound. And this is whatever. And I think it's not important which kind of silence you listen to, but the good thing is that you listen to something that is not your thoughts. Because when you have like crazy day and everything happened chaotically, then your mind is full of defilements, and the thought quality is based on the quality of our mind. So the thoughts we have in the chaotic minds are not extremely wholesome, let's say. So if we quiet our mind by listening to this inner silence and by resting on this flow of the meditation object, then the mind will get quieter. And quietness, tranquility, is very wholesome by nature. Stillness is wholesome. So the quality of the mind will improve, and then your thoughts will also improve. So you can trust this process, and you might not really give that much attention to these better thoughts. Now you go back to the silence, it gets even more tranquil, and then your thoughts will get even better. And as I said, at the end of the meditation, you will get the best thoughts, because your mind was so tranquilized, like so calmed down, that your thoughts will be very wholesome at the end. And then you take these thoughts to your life as a guidance to your further actions. And I think this is like the first part of the meditation, and we can actually practice it for the whole of the meditation. But what I also like to do is that I like to make first half of the meditation, no matter how long you meditate. Let's say we meditate half hour. So we take first half hour to practice this tranquility. And after around half hour, it doesn't have to be specific, we take up this more positive, like more active side of meditation, like loving kindness or compassion. Personally, I like to start from compassion. So I try to just develop compassion for myself and for all living beings. And it uplifts the mind. And then from compassion to loving kindness. And then I just go back to samatha at the end again. Or you can add any sequence of, recollection of generosity, do some forgiveness practice, or recollection, of devas, whatever you want. And then you close it out with samatha again. And it really changes our minds. First of all, it teaches us a lot about the mind itself, because we can observe the cause and effect, which is actually the last step I do in meditation, is to always notice what has changed in your mind and to observe the causal nature of the mind. So you observe that certain intentions lead usually to the same results. And you can see the mind works like cause and effect, cause and effect. This is very important insight practice. You learn how the mind works. And it's very good, because then you realize that mind actually, you can have some actual control of the mind, not like full control, but you can start putting the same wholesome causes in the future to get the same wholesome results. And if you do that more and more, hopefully if you learn that through this process of meditation, you get better feeling. Yeah, I'm so happy after meditation, I'm calm, it's great, amazing. So you get motivation. I want to do it again. I want next day to feel again this peace and this happiness and this loving kindness. So I want to do it again. And let's say you do it half an hour a day and then you do it 1 hour a day. And then you do it, for example, 2 times 45 minutes a day. So together you do hour and a half of meditation per day. And then imagine if every meditation gets you calm and happy and full of love, and you do it every day, like twice in the day or once in the day, it must change your life in the long term. Imagine doing this for 3 months and 3 months without it. These 3 months when you do it will be so much fuller of goodness, and many bad situations you will have much more dignity and wholesomeness in them, and you will also have do much more goodness. And it will start come back to you. First of all, you don't make so much problems for yourselves and those around you. And secondly, you do a lot of good for yourselves and those around you, because what we say and what we do emerges from the state of our mind. And meditation greatly improves the states of our mind. And because of that, we grow in wisdom and in morality and in restraint and in all the good qualities. So we just want to meditate more by nature. And usually we have to make some space for meditation, and usually what we want to resign are the most unskillful, useless things like scrolling some silly social media, or, I don't know, watching some stupid videos, or overworking, or, I don't know, whatever is useless. We usually resign from that. We renounce that in a way, but we start to cultivate meditation. And this is just enough. You start to transform your life because you constantly transform your mind. And sometimes people believe that, oh, if I meditate, then I will get some super state when everything will be solved. But actually, even if there are certain super states that will transform you, no doubt about this. But the truth is, one thing that it will do is that you will want to keep meditating. So just by meditating itself, the amount of time, it's like scales. The scale of wholesome is increasing. And by this, it's like snowball effect, that it will just increase and increase and increase. And by the very nature that you are cleansing your mind on a daily basis, it will change your life. And there appears to be a certain stage when you are a beginner of meditation that you feel like filled with meditation. I've had enough. I want to do something. Now I have enough peace. I must go and do something in the world. And that's natural. Great. Go and do something in the world. But as you practice for years, slowly and slowly, the percent of time that you want to stay in this stillness and peace will increase. And that's how you slowly get more and more towards enlightenment. So just keep going wherever you are. I think the only person we should compare ourselves is to ourselves, and to just slowly improve our lives. And I also like to conclude with the fact that meditation is simply to make your life better and your heart more wholesome, to grow spiritually. It's not like a duty. And one of my favorite Ajahn Sona quotes, it's not a duty, it's a beauty. It's not a duty. It's not like I must sit to meditation because my teacher told me so, or because the Buddha said so. Oh, I don't want to do it, but I do it as a duty. No, it's a beauty. You do it because you feel better because of it. And that's why it's very important, in my opinion, to spread meditation as like Bhante Sunyo does. That is a very pleasant process that is like resonating with your heart. And when you do it like that, try to make meditation fun. Feel like like a spiritual seeker. Yeah, I am meditating. I'm calming my mind. I become more like a deva. Actually, even there is a meditation in the Buddha text, like the canon, Pali Canon. They say that Devanusati recollections of the gods is that they were doing these wholesome practices, so they become gods. And yeah, when you do meditation, when you do kindness and do all this renunciation and virtue, When you practice that, you become more like a god. So yeah, you can become like this more like magical being in a way. So you can actually have this inner dialogue that motivates you in a way that yeah, this is cool, you know. I even remember a meme that were saying, "You may be cool, but you are not Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree cool." Is there something more cool than Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree? So yeah, you're cool when you meditate, and this is nice and wholesome. So this is like this angelic coolness to become more angelic. So whatever gets you to practice, just treat it as something positive, something nice, something pleasant. And then you will want to do it more. And this is also based on this principle of naturality. We want to make it natural. It's not a duty, it's a beauty. So this is my introductory lecture to meditation. This is my spin on all of this. Of course, it's mostly based on Buddhist teachings. And this is how I see it. And this is what we will practice in a second.